not allowing the logo and stuff like that are things that Urban did, and they worked really well. Um, are you giving him any of these ideas, or is he just taking them on his own and going forward?
I heard of Coach Summerall. I never met him. Um, I was asked to just give my opinion on some of the candidates they had out there. Certainly didn't make the decision. I really didn't have that much input in the decision. That's all Scott Strickland. But I was blown away with them. And here's what I did, Pat. I went and I had some help and got some interviews. I think how you address the media and how you address more the team. How are you in front of a team? And I tried to find as much stuff as I could where I wanted to see him. And then I talked to him, and then I watched film. But film's hard to evaluate because I didn't know his rosters and his players.
Sure.
But what blew me away, Pat, is my conversations with him. And in this era, when you talk to coaches, normally it's just bitching and complaining about transfer and NIL. That didn't come up one time. I had a long conversation with Coach Summerall, and it was about his strength coach. It was about his off-season program. It was about mat drills. It was about, training camp. It was about, and I was like, you're right. Maybe I was looking in the mirror and said, you want to win games, that's where your focus needs to be.
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Meldon Law Studios at the Hacienda. All right, welcome into another duly noted podcast brought to you, of course, by our good friends at Titan MRI and Imaging, and coming to you from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. Great show today. Urban Meyer is going to join us. We'll talk to him about Gator football and some other things, about what he's doing, obviously, with Fox and his podcast. And then, of course, Coach Spur on Monday. I've got a couple of things working on for next Thursday. We'll just get them done a little bit later, but it'll be fine. We'll get a good guest. I tell you what, we are nailing it with guests, and we're having a lot of fun with it, and they're having fun with it. That's a cool thing. We play yes, no, where, maybe. Everybody seems to be all in on it, That's good. All right. Let us get to our MoneyMetals.com starting five. MoneyMetals.com is your home for gold and silver purchases, one of the largest distributors in all the United States. 2 Gator grads are running it, and you can reach them at 1-800-800-1865 or at MoneyMetals.com. Okay, well, we're going to start with softball because softball played last night. They won at Stetson, which, if you remember the game against Stetson earlier this year, it was a tight game. I mean, Florida, I think, won 3-2. So you worried about that going down to Stetson. Florida wins the game 8-2. But what a double bonus they got! Not only getting a win, but they were able to witness history. And that was the Artemis II taking off, which, for those of you who don't know, it happened last evening. But they were actually on the field when it happened. In fact, we have video of it right here. Here it is. They're all pointing. Hey, look, up in the air. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Artemis. And it is Artemis, and there it goes. Pretty cool. We watched it. My wife and I, we were actually out having dinner, and everybody was cheering when it happened. I think everybody was just happy to see us back in space. Pretty cool thing. Anyway, it's important to mention, though, that the reason I'm mentioning this is because of softball winning. Now 34-4 on the season. And big series against Mississippi State at home this weekend. Mississippi State, by the way, 32-7. You go, oh, they're 4-5 in the SEC. So look, they're good enough to beat Florida a game or two, But what you really want to get if you're the Gators is to try to sweep them. Now, I'm a big believer in not saying that out loud, but I in this case, I'm gonna. And the reason is because of we've discussed before. I have this personality that I'm waiting for the bad things to happen a lot, and it's not good. It's not healthy, but it is me. So, I don't like to say you need to get a sweep here. You need to win game one. That's what you need to do, and then go on to game two. But a sweep would be nice, but 2 out of 3 wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Florida still has a chance to win the SEC. Now, obviously, Texas and Oklahoma, and there's one other team up there are playing really well and ahead of them. But we'll see what happens there. In softball, That gets us to number 2 on our Money Metals Exchange starting 5. Money Metals Exchange does a great job. You can go reach their stuff at moneymetals.com and buy some rounds or coins, as we like to call them, but they like to call them rounds. Let's go to baseball. Every time I get fired up about baseball this season, and maybe I should have learned this a long time ago, and I probably should have. Then they do something like they did Tuesday night, which is lose to JU, an under 500 JU team, even after they had this unbelievable week where they went 4-0 against top 10 teams. That's incredible. That's great. All right, man. I think one of the polls has them hosting right now. Well, or one of the projections has them hosting. Well, you can't lose games like that to JU. 4-3 loss, certainly not good. Now, again, they've got to get they've just got to figure out. I mean, it was their first midweek game loss. So it's not like I'm going to sit here and go, well, the problem for this team is they just can't play in the midweek games. But no, they had not lost one, but that was not a good loss. And that's the problem with this team is there is something really special about them and yet not special. Does that make any sense? Like every time, like when they went to Arkansas, do you think I'm thinking they're going to get a sweep there? No, of course not. Just try to win at least one. If you could steal 2, they end up sweeping them. And you get all excited and then you come home and lose a JU. It's a team that they have a clutch gene, but the clutch gene doesn't always show up, I think is what I'm trying to say. But hopefully they can get it going. Again, they've got to, this happens all the time. We know that because of the way the SEC sets these up, and there's no way to keep both teams away. It happened last week at Arkansas. Arkansas had a baseball and softball. Well, we've got that this week with baseball and softball going on. But the good thing is, and I'll get to the times of the games the channels are going to be on a little bit later. The good thing is they've staggered it enough that the only day you're probably going to have an issue if you're looking for parking is going to be on Friday. But they've staggered everything else enough, that it'll be okay. That's the thing. That is one thing that would keep me away personally from going over there to watch either one, because where am I going to park? And we've had tickets and everything like that. Anyway, that's not the point. Point is they have Ole Miss at home. Ole Miss 20-10 right now, 3-6 in the league. Florida was still a chance to win the league again. This is kind of a big weekend. I mean, we've got a long way to go in both sports, but it's kind of a big weekend coming up for Florida baseball and softball. And we will be watching all of it, man. I watched the whole softball and I watched the whole baseball game last night. So it was, or Tuesday night. Anyway, it was, you just got to keep plugging away. It is, let me tell you what, any baseball season, whether it's, minor leagues, whether it's high school, whether it's club ball, like Jeff does that team, what was it called? I can't think of what they're called. But anyway, the anything you play, baseball is a grind. It's a grind just being on the field and doing nothing sometimes. Like you can be in right field and never go 3 innings and never see a ball come your way. It is a grind. And the seasons tend to be long. Softball, same way. So the bottom line is, you got to grind it out. And if you can grind it out, you can win. And winning conference championships still matter around here. But mainly what you want to do is get in position to host. So both of them are in position to host, and we'll see where that goes the rest of the way. Let's get to number 3 on our moneymetals.com starting 5. And that is, as you may or may not know, I think most of you know, the Final Four is Saturday for the men. The women are start Friday. And the spreads were a little surprising to me. I got to be honest with you. When I saw them come up on the crawl, Illinois favored by 2 over UConn. I think people are looking well, and again, the way Illinois has played during this tournament has been pretty impressive. They got a really good team uh, built on European players, but that's fine if that's whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes to win. Get if you know whatever school you're at, whatever team you're rooting for, you just want to win. That's the main thing. Now, you would rather you win with good people, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes good people aren't good players. Sometimes bad people are good players, and sometimes good people are good players. That's the ideal thing. But I think in the case of these basketball teams, I don't know enough about them individually. I mean, I know about the players, but I don't know enough about their character because I don't hang around them and I don't cover them. But anyway, Illinois is a 2-point favorite over UConn, and Michigan 1.5 over Arizona. Now, I'm not going away from my pick. I picked Arizona right at the very beginning to win the whole thing, and I'm staying with them. So I'm going to pick Arizona to win that game. And I do think Illinois might be really good. Well, I know they're good. They're in the Final Four, but it's not like they fluked their way in there. UConn, I don't want to say fluked their way in, but they battled back, and I think that says a lot. We can talk about coaches that we like and don't like and whatever, but if you get your guys to play hard for you, that's all that matters. I talked about that Monday. And he does. He gets them to play hard. The news of yesterday too. Elliot Cadeau, the point guard for Michigan, was left behind because he had an allergic reaction to some food. I don't know if there was peanuts in it or what, but some people are allergic to peanuts. Anyway, he is going to make the trip though. Eventually, they just had to keep him under observation for a day. But you never know how that's going to affect him. Maybe he's going to be a little weakened. I don't know. I'm not around him, but I know anytime you have an allergic reaction, you got to take care of it. It'll be interesting to see who comes out of that and who the teams are. It doesn't feel, and I don't know how you guys all feel out there. No skin in the game for us, right? There's no SEC teams. There's no Florida, obviously. So what are we rooting for here? I guess like the weird thing about last week was that I was rooting for Duke reluctantly because I don't like Hurley, and I mean I'll never forget the way he acted last year. Um, he's a different cat. There's no doubt about it. He's weird in a lot of ways. I think he's mentally imbalanced, but it works, and that's what I'm talking about. If you win with a mentally imbalanced coach, go Hurley. That's I think the way the fans are. Anyway, and Bill Murray's son coaches for him too. So, but that's the positive. But the negative is Dan Hurley. But I just yeah, I think I'll root for Illinois, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to root for Michigan. Dusty May was here, as an assistant coach. I mean, I'm just looking for a reason. But I picked Arizona. But it's not like I'm going to win anything. I got in the ESPN pool. I only did one bracket. I'm all right. I told you last week I'm in 7 millionth place or whatever. So I think I'll just root for the team I want to win. But anyway, the Final Four coming up on Saturday, and that will be your Leonardo's quick pick. We'll get to that in a little bit later. Let's get to number 4 on MoneyMetals.com, starting 5. And that is, I wanted to talk about this, and I want to get some input from the listeners here on the show. And you can always email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com. I did this thing for patreon.com/Dooley Noted on yesterday, about what would give you hope? How many wins would give you hope? And I don't know that this is something we have talked about. And that's one reason I did it. I go, so Because I get asked that question a lot, how many wins do you think they'll get? Well, I don't know. I mean, I can look at the schedule and tell you where I think wins and losses are going to come. But anyway, the number one thing would be getting the college football playoff. That would be the most acceptable thing. Now, I'm not going to go win a national championship. I mean, I'm not going to say that because I don't think that this team's got that kind of talent. But winning 10 games and getting in the playoff, I think Gator fans would go, we're back, man. You win, and then you go down, win 9 games, probably don't get in the playoff because your schedule's not as tough as it was last year. Last year it was a feeling of if you won 9 games with that schedule, you'd get in. We'll never know if that would have happened or not. But the bottom line is 9, don't get in the playoff. Get a really nice bowl game, though, get some swag. And not too many guys want to opt out of it, hopefully. And then, then you go down to 8. 8, at least you're bowl eligible, blah, blah, blah. I think anything less than bowl eligibility this year would not be a good step forward. And obviously, anybody who's going to rip John Summerall if they go 5-7, you're allowed to. You're allowed to rip anybody you want. I don't think that's possible, but I guess it is possible. Of course, I didn't think 6 losing seasons in 13 years was possible for Florida. I thought that had gone away from the equation. Once Spurrier came in, and then even the Ron Zook, and of course Ron Zook was in town the other day, but Ron Zook won 7 games every year. And then Urban comes in, and we're just thinking it's going to go along like normal. And Will Muschamp, that 4-8 season, all of a sudden it was like it took all the swag out of Florida football. Mullen tried to bring it back, hasn't come back all the way, obviously, and Napier basically destroyed it, to be honest with you. That's the only way to say it. It's hard to get that edge back. Can they get the edge back? And we'll find out. But yeah, let me know what would be acceptable to you. What if you said, all right, here are the wins, here are the losses? Because you go through that schedule for this year, I should say. And, you obviously got the 2 freebies early. You've got a lot of road games. You got to go to Auburn, go to Kentucky, which for the second year in a row, they beat the crap out of you last time there. Of course, that was a different situation. You got to go to Tallahassee. Where's one other place they're going? Anyway, you got to go to Texas, which is never easy. You've got some tough games at home, Oklahoma. You got to go to Auburn. So it's not going to be easy. But it's going to be easier than it was last year and the year before that. There's no question about it. So I can see the 7 wins being like if somebody said, like over under 6.5. If somebody said to me, what would you be comfortable with 7? Yeah, I'd be comfortable with 7. I wouldn't be real comfortable with 8. And that goes back to the talent. Now, I was on 1010XL on Wednesday. And Matt Hayes was saying he had talked to Billy Napier, and Napier said they're a loaded team, and we had it all set up for them, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, he went 4-8. And I don't care that he wasn't the coach at the end and Billy Gonzalez was the interim. He went 4-8. It is what his record is. I count those losses because they were not in position to be good enough. Look, a lot of that has to do with Lagway. We all know that. I'm going to do my best over the next 6 to 7 months of not bashing DJ Lagway. Look, I think he's a sensitive kid who was put in a tough situation. I think his camp did him no services, putting him 4 miles off campus and living by himself. And you want to make friends? You make friends? Hang around people. You're part of it. You're not the guy who is put over here. And I blame Napier a little bit for that. And I blame everybody at Florida a little bit for that because you allow that to happen. You enable that. I know that our guest today enabled some players. His philosophy, though, was, If you're a star, we're going to treat you different. If you're not, we're not. We're going to treat you the same. But when you make one guy the star, I think that's the problem that they had there. But I'm getting to we don't want to talk about the last few years, the last 6 years, really. When you go back to the last 3 games of Dan Mullen, losing those 3 games, then going 6 and 7, then, anyway, if you want to go read that, it's at patreon.com. You have to be a member. It's $5 a month. You can handle it. Also, just to let you know, starting next week, next Sunday, I think it is next Monday, I'll be writing for the Main Street News. So I'm going to be writing a weekly column. We're going to call it the Front Nine. The Back Nine will still be on patreon.com, and the Front Nine will be in the Main Street News, and we'll kind of combine them and make a newsletter out of it. So it ought to be pretty cool. I'm fired up. I'm excited. And again, I was missing writing too much. I wasn't writing very much. I was writing a little bit here and there. But once I stopped doing radio, I got time. There's no excuse. I miss writing, and I wanted to get back to it, and I'm writing a lot. And obviously, I'm going to have 18 items, 9 front 9, 9 back 9. So, all right, let's get to number 5 on our moneymedals.com starting 5, and that would be gymnastics. It is tonight. It starts the regionals, and the way it works is the top 2 teams in each pod, I guess you could say, that are out there in Tempe will advance to the regional finals, and then 2 teams from there go to the NCAAs. But look, got work to do. I know that they seem to have almost peaked. That's the worry you have, is they peaked at the SECs when they had the highest score of the year. They'll be fine, but it's a game, or a session 2 is when they start. They don't start till 10 o'clock. It is on the plus, so you diehards will be able to watch it. I don't know, 10 o'clock for me, old man, I may stay up and watch it. I mean, it's over in an hour and a half. It's not, well, maybe it goes longer. But it'll be over in 2 hours, so I'll probably watch it. I'll probably stay up and watch it. I know my wife will. Anyway, all right. That is going to do it for our moneymedals.com starting 5. We'll take a break, and when we come back, Urban Meyer will join us going into the Ring of Honor this year, and also he is killing it on Fox, on their show, their big kickoff show, Big Noon Kickoff, and on his own podcast with a couple of guys. So we love that. We love it about Urban, and we appreciate him coming on. And we'll talk to him when we return. We'll do yes, no way, or maybe with him as well. When we return on another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, and coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Money Metals Exchange is a new sponsor for our starting 5 here on another duly noted podcast, and we are so happy to have a group that is formed by 2 Florida grads, Mike and Stephen Gleason. They do a great job up there. If you're looking to buy or sell any gold or silver products, this is the place for you. And you can reach them at moneymetals.com. Also, phone number 1-800-800-1865. They are the place to go. They run the largest Class 3 precious metals depository west of New York. They've been voted the best online precious metals dealer in the United States by Investopedia. It's a bull market right now. Everybody needs to get in on the gold and silver markets, especially silver. So it's a great time to jump in. I looked at it yesterday. I was on the website for a while, and it was amazing how many different things they have. Coins and rounds and bars and just all kinds of special things. And I think you would have a great time just going in there and browsing. And I mean, look, the prices are right there. You know how much it is. Money Metals Exchange is the place to go. Again, Mike and Stephen Gleason do a great job. You can reach them at moneymetals.com or reach them at 1-800-800-1865.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging and coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. It is a great pleasure to bring on two-time Florida national champ, three-time overall national champ, Urban Meyer, to our show. And of course, has his own podcast, has his own TV show. He's the king of all media now. I don't know how'd that happen, Urban. How did you become such a celebrity on all these media outlets?
You know, I actually thought about that during my career. I had some opportunities to be on ESPN Game Day. I remember we didn't make it in 2007, and they asked me to be part of the game day for the national title. It was Ohio State LSU, and I said, man, I really enjoy this. And obviously Kirk Herbstreit is a dear friend, and I've had other great friends. It's a great way to stay still engaged. So much of it like a team. It's who you're with, and I can't. My guys at Big Noon are like their family. You know, Matt Liner, Brady Quinn, and Mark Ingram, Rob Stone. I've always heard that, and it's so true. So I don't like it. I love doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you were up here, and that's another thing where you're being more engaged, I think, with everything going on around here. I mean, certainly with John Summerall, I think helping him convince him to come up here. We'll give you some credit for it, all right, 10%. How about that?
Good.
So when you were out there, what was it like to be out there on the practice field and talk to the team?
Yeah, Coach Summerall invited me up to speak to the team and then to spend some time with the staff, and then, of course, the high school clinic. And, you know, that's the first time I'd been on those practice fields since whenever that was. And what just caught my eye was the buildup of the facilities. You know, when it rained, we had to go in the Florida gym, or we had to go underneath the steps of the bleachers of the stadium. And I remember lightning hitting, and I'm looking around saying, this is spectacular. You know, how they put that together, and the functionality. That's what I always look at as a coach, is when, and I've been a part of building a few facilities, the most important thing is efficiency. And only really a coach understands that. You know, does this 5 minutes matter? I remember in Florida, we used to have to walk. It was about a 15-minute walk. So we're building in 30 minutes a day. And the reality is that, you know, Florida's not exactly, I mean, it's pretty hot. And you're asking players to walk 30 minutes, 15 before and 15 after practice. And I remember at one point we kind of took pride in, we're tough, we can do it. But then you start thinking about the efficiency of it. It wasn't very efficient.
No, and that was, I think, something that Scott Strickland talked about a lot when he got here was, he couldn't believe that they had to walk that. And if you added up I remember he told me how many steps they had to take every day to go to practice and back. And I'm like, yeah, well, it is what it is. Certainly, you're also been involved in trying to maybe solve the college football problems, but I don't know that they're solvable, Urban. That's what I keep taking back. Every time somebody starts talking about things, I go, well, how is that going to happen? I mean, are these, like we kept hearing that the market will settle it down, and the numbers aren't going to keep being as ridiculous as they are, and they're worse. They're more money going into it than they were, and I love it for the players, but it's kind of making it, you've got to have a lot of money to compete now.
Well, I would disagree a little bit, Pat. I think it's very solvable. And really, you know, I think we learned that, I don't want to get political, but if you have rules and you don't enforce rules, it's chaos. Why have rules? And so the NCAA right now is an organization that And I'm not blaming Charlie Baker. I've met him for the first time on Zoom, and a fine person, obviously tremendous person. I've always got along great with the NCAA, but the NCAA also became an organization that every time they made a rule or they enforced a rule, they got litigated and they lost. And they don't have subpoena power, so investigations were taking years instead of months or weeks. And I felt for them. We were always a program that I'd like to believe that we followed the rules. And I would turn things in, and like you'd hear it. It was pretty much this happened, and nothing would happen for several years. But then I started doing research. Like, wait a minute now, they don't have subpoena power. And then as the years moved on, they would get litigated and lose. So, Pat, I would say this, and this is just my opinion. And this, I've been knee deep in this thing for a couple months now. This is very solvable. And it's not taking money out of the players' pockets. It's just putting it where it's supposed to be. And NIL in its purest form is America. Pat Dooley should be able to make money off Pat Dooley's name. That's why you live in the country. Not countries are like that, but this country is that. And no one should tell you how to do that. A matter of fact, it's called antitrust. I learned that. You can't. But so in its purest form, a women gymnast, a men's soccer player, tennis player, they have a right to send it to the market. And that's not what happened. What happened is they started these things called collectives, where donors will put in millions and millions of dollars, and they would actually use it for recruiting, which there's black and white letters that say you can't do that, but it's not enforceable. So the first thing number one, it has to happen is there has to get antitrust exemption for the governing body, which as of now, it's the NCAA, and I hope it stays that way. If that happens, then you can go from A to B to C. And then you have antitrust is A, then you have the NIL / collective situation. You have eligibility, which is a hot topic, which,
Sure.
and then finally the transfer portal. Now there's some other things that are way below that, but those are the 4 hot spots.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, look, I love when, Florida gets a good player from the portal. I don't like when a good player leaves. I mean, and I think that's where every fan is, where they're just watching these guys come and go and how much money they're being offered. ETN was a good example of that. We've seen it happen before, but I mean, you're right. Antitrust has to happen because part of the problem for the NCAA was that they, I remember, I think there was a UCF kicker or somebody where all this kind of stuff got kind of skewed, where he was doing stuff on Instagram or whatever. And they were saying, you can't do that, and they weren't allowing anybody to make money off their own name.
And that was an error. I don't fault anybody because I was part of it. I just kind of drank that Kool-Aid that, my gosh, the way players were treated back early in my career. I remember I was at Notre Dame, and we didn't have a very good training table. Think about that. I first went to Florida, and there were some things that we couldn't really take care of the players the way you had to. And Jeremy we did a great job, but that's kind of the way we have no money. We don't have this. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you have everything, and players should be treated elite. And I'm not just talking about football players. I'm talking to my daughters are volleyball players. I think student athletes, what they do for universities should be treated, number one, health and safety, and then they should be fed right. And those are all that has to happen. But they should also have an opportunity to profit off their name. And that's where this all ended up, because it got litigated and the NCAA and member institutions lost.
I meant to ask you about that, your family. I know how Shelly's doing, but the rest of them, we used to see them all the time. I haven't seen them in forever.
Oh, Pat, I have 3 wonderful kids, Shelly, Nikki, Gigi, and Nate, and we're so blessed. They're great kids. They have great families, and probably the greatest gift that I have is their spouses. I take all for children. That's how much we love them. We have 6 grandkids, and it's the joy of our life. You're not in my house now, but it's just filled with the grandkid pictures, and all the way from 9 years old down to little peanuts. So we're very blessed.
Wow, that's great stuff. I can't believe that you got to be a grandfather before I did. So
how about that?
Yeah. Well, one reason is my oldest daughter doesn't want to have kids, and my youngest daughter is only 24, so I'm not ready for her to have kids. But anyway, I did want to talk to you about John Summerall, and I mean you've been around him a little bit, certainly. And I feel like, in fact, I was on a radio station yesterday with Matt Hayes and Joe Cowart, and they were talking about how they feel like John Summerall's trying to be a version of you. And I said, well, not allowing the logo and stuff like that are things that Urban did, and they worked really well. Um, are you giving him any of these ideas, or is he just taking them on his own and going forward?
I heard of Coach Summerall. I never met him. Um, I was asked to just give my opinion on some of the candidates they had out there. Certainly didn't make the decision. I really didn't have that much input in the decision. That's all Scott Strickland. But I was blown away with them. And here's what I did, Pat. I went and I had some help and got some interviews. I think how you address the media and how you address more the team. How are you in front of a team? And I tried to find as much stuff as I could where I wanted to see him. And then I talked to him, and then I watched film. But film's hard to evaluate because I didn't know his rosters and his players.
Sure.
But what blew me away, Pat, is my conversations with him. And in this era, when you talk to coaches, normally it's just bitching and complaining about transfer and NIL. That didn't come up one time. I had a long conversation with Coach Summerall, and it was about his strength coach. It was about his off-season program. It was about mat drills. It was about, training camp. It was about, and I was like, you're right. Maybe I was looking in the mirror and said, you want to win games, that's where your focus needs to be. Of course, you need great players. That's like saying you got to brush your teeth and you wake up in the morning. Of course, but you really want to win games, you better, especially in that stadium I see behind you, when you jog out of that tunnel, that team better know they're going to get hit right in the face as hard as they can. It better be an intimidating atmosphere, not just the crowd. I mean, that's part of it, but you're facing a team that's physically maximized who they are, and they're tough, rugged people. And I felt that after speaking to Coach Summerall.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been talking about, that Florida needs to get the edge back, and they haven't had it for a while. And they need to get that edge where, I think for a while it became, we're the Gators, all we have to do is roll the ball out there and we'll be fine. Instead of, we're the Gators, we're going to live up to the standard. And you know how that is. I mean, you've got to live up to that standard because everybody wants to beat you. That's the way it is.
And the guy that started that was a guy named Steve Spurrier, who's a dear friend of mine and a guy that I can't even begin to explain how much respect I have. He did it differently than we did, but he still had that edge.
Yeah.
When that Gator team jogged down the field, and you can say, yeah, they threw the ball around. It was, what was it, fun and gun or something like that. Yeah, don't tell Javon Curse that, or don't tell the, James Bates about fun and gun. They'd hit you right in the face. They were an intimidating outfit, and I felt that pressure every day when I was the head coach of Florida. Every day, I felt Steve Spurrier, and I felt that if we ever started to lose it wore me out. And I was also and it's not healthy, but it better be that way at that school.
Sure. No, I agree with you 100%. And I'm hoping he gets it back. By the way, I ran into Byron from Blue Water the other night out at dinner, and we talked about you a lot. So he's still thinking about you a lot. He's a good dude, as you know. I did want to ask you also about just being on TV, being on the podcast, and how much you just have gravitated. I mean, you explain why you want to do it, but why do you think you like doing it? Why is it so much fun for you? Because a lot of people, they get on there and they don't particularly care for it.
Well, I'm grateful for Fox, and when Fox came to see me, I was getting ready to coach my final game at the Rose Bowl, and they came to see me. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I shared this many times. They said, at Fox Sports, we celebrate the game and those who play it. And I reached out my hand and I shook their hand. I said, this isn't about being as loud and crazy and calling people names. And if you ever watch our shows, I certainly will never do that. I have too much respect for those guys playing and coaching the game. So I've always had great respect for Fox. I've also worked for the Big Ten Network, which Fox owns them. because I've always just admired the fact how they glorify the game and they glorify these kids who play it. And that's what we do, and that's why I appreciate working for Fox.
All right, Urban Meyer coming to you on the Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line. It is time for us to play the game Yes, No Way, or Maybe with Urban Meyer. Of course, brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak. They do street dining the right way. Go in there and say you listen to Urban Meyer on the podcast, and you get free French fries with your order. Urban won't eat French fries, though. I can tell you that.
You give me that address. I'll go to get a couple.
All right, number one, you had a shot of Los Linderos after Braylon Mullins made that shot for UConn the other night, because I know you texted Dan Hurley before the game.
Yeah, I won't tell you the language we use because he's a nut job, and I love that. And I'm invested in UConn just because I don't know much. Of course I know about UConn, but I love that coach.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, my Nate and his grandson are visiting, and right over there, my grandson's sleeping. I'm watching this, and I'm telling Shelly, "My gosh, watch this!" And then, it just happened so fast. And I said, "Oh, I won't tell you the language I used." We woke up my grandson. And she got really upset with me that we woke up my grandson. So did I have a shot? No, I gave up drinking for Lent, so I did not have a shot.
Okay. But you're still, Los Linderos is your.
Los Linderos is my, I'm an investor in it. How about that, man?
There you go. That's good, though. Look, you got to give up some things for Lent. There's no question. All right, number two on Yes, No, Where, Maybe. You are now regularly breaking 80 that you're playing so much golf.
Regularly? I need a
regularly would be half the time. Yeah,
I'd say half the time I'm in. It depends, of course.
Yeah,
of course. But my home course, I'm in that high 70, low 80.
Good for you. I used to be there too. I'm not there anymore. The knees, two artificial knees, just don't hit it as far. I can occasionally break 80, but not very often. All right, number three on our. Obviously, our Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom call. Number three is, you never thought I would be telling you that in the last 66 games, Florida has only won 29.
No way.
I had to look it up today, and I couldn't believe it. And I've been through it.
Give me the number again.
They're 29-37 in their last 66 games.
Well, I don't want to throw stones or anything. I'm not about that, but no, I never thought that would happen.
Well, and we thought you would, when you came in here, it was going to always keep going like that. And I think that's what a lot of people thought. But you never know. College football is changing landscape every day. You know that.
The best thing, though, is the product. We can bitch and moan about everything. And I brought this up many times that, yes, there's some behind the scenes things that need to get cleaned up for the best interest of the sport and I'd say the players, and the women's sports and Olympic sports and all that. But the product on the field, Pat, has never been better. There's never been more parity. There's never been more kids graduating because they're coming back and they're finishing their degrees. The television interest, our Fox Big Noon Kickoff is up 26%, and and the viewership, the interest, the college football playoff. I wish I got to coach in that. Our Utah team would have made some waves in there. Our 2009 Gator team would have, if we had one more shot, that's how good that team was. So I would say that, yes, there's a lot of things that people can complain about, and we're going to try to fix, but also this sport has never been better.
I agree. Hey, look, no matter what they do, I'm going to still watch. I know, sure. Because I love the game more than anything. Urban, it's always great talking to you, buddy. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll be back with more of another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios right after this break.
Coach, it always impressed me how you beat Florida State to win the 1996 national championship.
And I was really impressed with your 06, 08, and 09 Gator teams.
And the way you coached Danny to the Heisman Trophy.
A lot like what you did with Tim Tebow.
You won more SEC championships than you lost home games at the Swamp.
And you had plenty of super games in front of our Gator Nation.
Yeah, there really is something special about the Swamp.
I guess that's why we say about the Swamp, only the Gators get out alive.
To the Swamp and the Gators, with the best beverage served at Spur's Gridiron Grill. 100% agave, Los Landeros tequila. Aged in bourbon barrels for a smoother taste.
I think you mean Head Beer Coach 1966 lager, a crisp, light, bodied lager for easy drinking.
Nope. Los Landeros tequila. Smooth enough to drink neat and bold enough to elevate a cocktail.
1966 lager, enjoyed on game days in the fall or whenever you need a winning cold brew.
Los Landeros tequila.
1966 lager.
Los Landeros.
1966 lager.
Y'all stop bickering.
Okay, you're both wrong anyway. The best thing Spurrier's Gridiron Grill offers are Jerry's famous chocolate chip cookies.
All right, it may be a new year, but it doesn't mean you have to back off any of your goals as far as losing weight. I know I've been working even harder on it, and of course I get an assist from BMI TeleMed. They help us out with our New Year's resolutions, even if I've already broken 2 of them. Not the food ones, though. Weight loss is your goal. Get with BMI TeleMed. They use GLP-1 medications, and they are individualized, and that's the great thing. I've been through this, and Charlie, just talking to him, it was so great to make him understand, and he understood what I was doing. It's not about just losing weight. It is about keeping it off. You know that. We're all excited about the new year, and we're going to lose weight, but when you lose it in the first month, then you got to keep going. BMI TeleMed is sensible. It's straightforward. It's affordable. No contracts or hidden costs. BMI TeleMed is donating $1 for every pound you lose to the Florida Victorious Foundation. So go Gators. Join the listeners on this podcast who've already lost over 600 pounds. Are you kidding me? I'm 60 of them right there. All right, contact BMI TeleMed today at 727-383-1677. Adams Rib Company has been a staple of Gainesville for more than a decade and a staple of the Dooley house ever since Kelsey's teeth came in. The first time I walked into Adams, I told my daughter that the green beans are always a test of a great barbecue restaurant, and they were perfect. You know about the ribs that melt in your mouth, and my favorite, the turkey plate. But be sure to go in on Fridays for Nana's Fish Nuggets. They will melt in your mouth. Adams Rib Co., a Gainesville great. Hey, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Let us proceed with level 3. We'll start with our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Hesser and Kipke, with over 50 years of combined legal experience in North and Central Florida, Hesser and Kipke is your place for bankruptcy, workers' compensation, and family law. Call or text Ken and Jennifer at 352-339-9920, Hesser and Kipke. By the way, I wanted to mention Ken Hesser sent me, he's doing a podcast himself with book reviews, which is really cool. In fact, he was doing one he sent me yesterday, so it was really good too. He's doing a good job with it. So he's coming after my audience. I don't know. No, he's not. We love Hesser and Kipke, believe me. All right, let's start with number 1, let's talk about the ABS, the system that's used to call balls and strikes now. And certainly there are guys that are getting ripped because they overturn all their. But look, when you're watching a game and you see a pitch that's clearly a ball and they call it a strike, I wish we had it in college baseball where the umpiring is brutal. I always say you got to play around the umpires. The one exception would be Eric Gregg against when the what was it, Marlins and Braves, and that still stays with. I remember I was in New Orleans. I had just covered Danny Werfel's first. Or not his first start, but he was going to start the next game because he played well in this game. I can't remember who they were playing for the Saints. And I watched the game in the hotel, and I was so mad. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. They should have put the rule in then. But we saw the first walk-off because of the ABS, because they thought it was a ball the guy was going to walk, and it was a strike. It was actually the Orioles-Rangers game Wednesday. And that's going to happen more and more. You know, you could take a 3-2 pitch and you think it's a ball and they call it a strike and that's the game, and you tap on your thing and you have a challenge left and all of a sudden it's a ball and now the winning run score or the tying run scores or whatever. I think it's getting a lot of attention, maybe too much attention, but it is a big deal. I think some people will say it's exposing that the umpires aren't great. Some people will say it exposes that they get most of the pitches right, but occasionally they do miss. I think it's a little bit of both, you know. But the bottom line is you're not going to go get new umpires. You know, believe me, there is nobody below them that's any better. I've watched it all the time. Got to play around it, right? But that was the first game that has been decided on a pitch like that. All right, number 2 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. We talked a lot about all these openings that could be happening. Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, all in the same year. Well, not so fast, my friends. Not only does Kentucky seem they're going to settle with Mark Pope, but Bill Self announced yesterday that he is coming back for his 34th year or whatever it is as a coach. I'm not really surprised by that. I think when you're a guy who's, even when you've had health problems, you know, and you've been to the doctors and you feel like you've got them straightened out, you know, and that is still the thing you want to do is be a coach. Maybe if this year didn't knock him out of it with Darren Peterson and all he had to go through with him and all, again, putting a guy ahead of the rest of the team, there's no question that Bill Self's a very good coach. I'm not a fan. I think he was a cheater before cheating was allowed. But the bottom line is he will be back for another year. And let's get to number 3 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. A couple of guys going into rehab. One would be Tiger Woods. A judge allowed him to go out of the country for it because he doesn't want anybody to see him, I guess. Imagine if you were somebody that wasn't Tiger Woods and you made that request. I don't think you could win that, but he is Tiger Woods. He is the most famous golfer of all time. Whether you want to argue whether he's the best or not, I'm a big Nicklaus guy. Nicklaus won more majors. Tiger had his issues. I think that separates Nicklaus from Tiger. However, when they were both playing, I thought Tiger was the best of all time. And I think Nicklaus did too. I think he said that. But Tiger's obviously had his own problems and he's going to rehab somewhere. He'd probably go to like Saudi Arabia or go to some island and just chill out and come back and go, I'm fixed. He's had some issues, anti-Semitic stuff and biting. He's just gotten a little weird. So he needs to take care of some stuff. And sometimes you just need to do that. You know, I used to do this I did it twice back when I had so much going on. I had too much going on. And I would take what I used to call a mental health week. And a lot of times I would just go to St. Augustine. Like I had friends who had a condo. Mike Martin, my friend, had a condo over there. I'd go stay there and just hang out at the beach and just kind of get my mind right. Sometimes you got to do that, man. Mental health is a serious situation. And it helped me and it'll help you. All right, that is our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Let's move along to our Los Linderos tequila smooth move of the weekend. I thought I was going to get Urban to admit that he took a shot after that shot that was made in the UConn game, but go beyond with Los Linderos tequila. His favorite tequila still, even though he's given up tequila for Lent, and my favorite as well. All right, our Los Linderos. Smooth move of the weekend. I'm going to give it to the University of Florida Athletic Department because they sent out this survey. And when it was sent out, and they sent it to season ticket holders and other people who bought tickets. So we qualified, so I got one. And when they sent the survey out, I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't even know if I want to fill it out. And then I read through it, and took me a while to get it done. It's a lot of questions, and a lot of the same questions over and over again. But it was interesting, and it's a smooth move for this reason. If 84% of the people say, the most important thing to me is Wi-Fi, that's what you're going to make better. If you say the most important thing is comfy seats, and you can always come back and go, hey, everybody said that's what they wanted. So they're trying to find out what everybody wants, what makes their boats float. And I think it's a great idea to do this, and we'll see what happens, and we'll see if what it ends up being. The stadium you can see right there behind me, and I think the stadium's fine. However, I do think there are things they could do, and I do think that the railings that they will have to put in, because once you touch anything in that lower bowl, you have to be ADA compliant. So they're fine with me. Believe me, I as a guy who's got knees, artificial knees, and everything like that. Yeah. So anyway, it was a smooth move to send that out. I think it was smart on their part. And the great thing that they did is they sent out pictures too, with like, okay, would you like a lounge area on the east side? And then they sent pictures of examples like Tennessee or Arizona State or a soccer field. So it kind of gave you a better feel for it. It was really well done. I thought they did a good job with it. All right. Let us go now to our Adams Ribco Gator of the Week. Our Gator of the Week brought to you by Adams Ribco. Place to go for all your barbecue needs. And don't forget, Nana's Nuggets available on Friday. Good day to be going there. I'm really got to make a decision tomorrow. Do I go get the Nana's Nuggets or do I go to Leonardo's? I need to pick up some more gift certificates. I may go to both. But that's not how you lose weight, Pat. No, I'm kidding. All right. Our Adams Ribco Gator of the Week is Jocelyn Erickson. And the reason is because on Wednesday night, she became the sixth player in Florida history to have 200 RBI for a career. Now, she's only been 2.5 seasons, I think maybe a little more than 2.5 seasons to get that, because obviously she was at Oklahoma, so that's pretty impressive. So as a result, Jossie is our Adams Ribco Gator of the Week, and we'll get to the games that are coming up this weekend when we get to our Swamp games of the weekend as well. Let us get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick pick. Brought to you by our good friends at Leonardo's of Millhopper. And we will, I did send those out to our last winner. I sent 2 gift certificates. I actually included a No Paul gift certificate in there as well, just because trying to help No Paul out. We talked about that before. And make sure everybody knows about it. It's really good food there. And of course, when you go to Leo's, you're going to get a good meal. And I highly recommend ordering the Duels sandwich. All right, so here's the picks. And you send them into patrickdooley54@gmail.com. Very simple. Who's going to be in the championship game? So you're picking both the Final Four games. So you could pick UConn and Arizona, or you could pick Michigan and Illinois. You could pick Michigan and UConn. Whatever you pick, that's all you got to do. Pick the 2 teams, send it in. And that will qualify you not once, but twice, because if you get both of them right, you get 2 qualifications. If you only get 1 right, you only get 1 right. 1 qualification. So we'll see how that goes. And, we're a couple of weeks still away from doing another poll, but we'll get one pretty soon. That is our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick pick. All right, let us move to this, that, and the other.
What do you want? This, that, and the other.
Of course, this, that, and the other is brought to you by Notary Joe. Notary Joe is a mobile notary who will come to your house. Joseph Newton does a great job. 863-990-4884. If you want to get a hold of him, he will come right to your house and do your notary work. It is brought to you by Dar Shakow Insurance. For all your home, auto, commercial, and life needs, Dar Shakow is the name for you. And by the Atlanta Hustle. The schedule's out. You can look at it for the Southeast Ultimate Frisbee team, the Atlanta Hustle, sponsored by Learner Law. We appreciate Learner Law very much. All right. So this, that, and the other. This is that Tuesday is my least favorite day of the year. Okay. And I'm going to get to why in a minute. But Well, every year when I see it coming up, I go, "Oh gosh, I'm going to have to deal with this," because and it's my fault. Maybe I shouldn't rely on Twitter for a lot of news. There's a lot of AI stuff. There's a lot of false stuff. There's good stuff on there though, and there's guys you can trust. I don't know who to trust on that part of it. April 1st, because there are so many stories out there. People think they're being funny. And to be honest with you, it's Twitter. I shouldn't take it so personally. But I used to get mad when newspapers, not newspapers, regular newspapers, but, like the Alligator and things like that would do these, they'd have a story saying, Florida-Georgia game moving to Taiwan or something like that. When they were pretty obvious, you could go, okay, that's just being April Fools. But, there was a lot of them yesterday where I'm like, really? Oh man, this will be a good thing for. And then you realize, oh, it's not. I think they had one with Olivier Roy is going to FSU. That's where he's committed to. I think that was, and they had a quote and everything from him. Now, I don't think he is, but it's just like with so when Tyler Tanner says he's not going to go, he's decided not to go to the NBA. He's in the portal, which I don't understand why. I guess they can't come up with the money for him. My immediate reaction was, God, I would love him if he came to Florida. That would be great. That would be the other shooting guard that they really need. I don't know if they can afford him because it's going to, they're paying Boogie Flan $2 million. Then I start thinking, is this real or not? And so it kind of dampened my whole enthusiasm for a story that, to be honest with you, is not a big story until it happens. So the other is, I hate April 1st, and I will hate it until the end of my life. There's so much stuff on there that came out yesterday. None of it's true. In fact, I was telling Zach, it's a good thing we didn't do the podcast yesterday, because I would have been saying, hey, this happened and this happened. None of it happens. Yes, I do need to quit using Twitter as a major news source. You're absolutely right about that. That is this, that, and the other. Let us move along to our Gallo Car Wash Sponge of the Week, brought to you by our good friends at Gallo Car Wash, where we get all of our cars washed, and mine needs it again. The pollen is just incredible, but you can go in there and get it done. They do a great job at Gallo Car Wash. Our Sponge of the Week is Trinidad Chambliss, who, of course, last week on Friday got a injunction. Or he didn't get the injunction. The NCAA was appealing, saying they should be in charge of who's eligible and who's not. And the court, Mississippi, said, no, you can't. You're not allowed to do that. We want him to play. Okay, that's part of it. That is just part of it, the story. During interviews this week about that and other things, he came out and he said, yeah, Pete Golding he's kind of more of a team guy than the other guy was. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, we all know that. Lane Kiffin has always been about Lane Kiffin. We all know that, but it became a big story. So Trinidad Chambliss in the offseason is still being able to soak up a lot of publicity. The bad thing, of course, is that Florida's got to play against him. You never know, though. He could sprain an ankle and not be able to play in the game. But, hey, look, that game is here. So, Swamp, you've been charged, okay? It's that place right there, right behind me, I should say, is you need to come up big for that game. That is going to be a big one too. That's the thing. Florida's schedule is not as hard as it was last year. We all know that, but it's still a great schedule. It's still really interesting schedule with the 9 games. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun year. All right, let us move along to our BMI TeleMed Smart Move of the Week. It is brought to you by our friends at BMI TeleMed, 727-383-1677. Achieve and maintain with your weight loss specialist. We mentioned on Monday that they sent a check for $267, I think it was, for just this quarter. That's how much people have lost using BMI TeleMed. And if you call in and sign up with them, you get a discount on your order if you mention that you heard it on another Duly Noted podcast. And we know a lot of people have, and they've stayed with us, and we appreciate it. Our BMI TeleMed Smart Move of the Week. Well, for once, it was Tiger Woods in doing something smart after a week where he didn't do a lot of things smart. Started Friday, and then but it's gone on forever. The bottom line is, and I'm not trying to make fun of him. I'm just trying to say they had given him a deadline before the Masters. We need to know if you want to be the captain of the Ryder Cup. Well, yesterday he gave them the answer, which is clearly I don't. I got things I got to take care of. Smart move, Tiger. You don't need if the Ryder Cup was in the United States, it would be tough. But it's going to be, I think it's in Ireland. So you don't need to be hassled like that. You're already going out of the country to do your rehab because you don't want your privacy invaded. And he is for a guy who's the most famous golfer in the world, a very public person. But anyway, Tiger is our BMI TeleMed Smart Move of the weekend. All right, let us get to our Swamp Restaurant. Games of the weekend. We got a lot going on, and the Swamp is a place to watch it. Great food, great drink specials, and there are going to be so much stuff going on. Get that nice. It's so nice out right now. It's still not stupid hot. It's hot, but not stupid hot. This is the time to really enjoy Gainesville, and so the Swamp is a place to do that. Let's start with gymnastics. I mentioned earlier, it's tonight at 10 o'clock. Tomorrow, it'll be the afternoon at 4 o'clock, and it's on ESPN Plus because it's regionals. Then when you get into the regional finals, they tend to show them on regular ESPN channels. But that's what's tonight and tomorrow. And then Saturday is the final. Baseball, 6:30 tonight. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Don't forget that. It's on the Plus, 6:30 tonight. 6:30 tomorrow night. It's also on the Plus. And then 7:30 on Saturday night. It's on the SEC network. So you can watch it on that. Meanwhile, softball, 6 o'clock Friday. So there is the one conflict there where you're going to have parking is going to be an issue. That is on SEC Plus. And then 11:30, that's a great move that they made to make that 11:30 game on Saturday. And that way people can get all the way out and then other people come back. That is on the SEC network too on Saturday. And then Sunday, 1 o'clock on Sunday, and that is on the Plus as well. Again, they are playing Mississippi State. Not a bad team, not a great team. We'll see how it goes. Okay, let us give you the women's basketball, which starts tomorrow night, Friday night, the Final Four, South Carolina, UConn. At the 7 on ESPN. Texas, UCLA, 9:30 ESPN. Okay, again, no skin in the game. If you're a Gator fan, you haven't had skin in the game for a long time. I mean, the one team, and Chris Harry and I love to tell the story about when we went out there and covered a game that started at 10 o'clock and couldn't get it in the paper. But they sent us out there all the way to Oakland, and that was a Sweet 16 under Carol Ross. Been a long time. Tammy Reese, I know she got a big-time assistant. Is it Shay Johnson or Shay Robinson? God, I'm blanking on the name. But anyway, and they got good players. If they can retain them, they got to get more good players. They got to be deeper. But it'd be nice just to be in the tournament once in a while. Anyway, so I don't know. I guess I'll probably root for South Carolina just because I'm not a big Geno guy, although I admire what he's done. He's been incredible. His numbers are, nobody can even come close. He's just incredible. And then Texas, UCLA, I'll root for the SEC. I think I'll root for the SEC in both. So those are the games. They're all 1 seeds too, by the way. And we were talking about how parity was creeping into the women's game a few years ago. No, it's not. It really isn't. You got 4 number 1 seeds like you had with the men last year. But the difference is the 4-1 seeds, Florida came out of nowhere. to be a 1 seed, you know? I mean, it's not like, so there was some parity. But anyway, and they had to win all those close games. All right, and the men is, of course, Saturday, Monday, and we'll give you the Saturday games. Saturday, Illinois, UConn, 6:09 on TBS. Don't forget, it's on TBS, not CBS. Michigan, Arizona is at 8:49 on TBS. You can also watch it on True TV, but I don't know why anybody would. If you've got TBS, you're going to watch it on TBS because it's easier to find. And I think it's on HBO Max or something like that. But again, it doesn't stink to be a UConn fan. And I still cannot explain Storrs, Connecticut and how they get people up there. But I'm done trying to, because they keep doing it and they keep winning. They got the right coaches, that's for sure. And finally, lacrosse is playing Friday at noon against Colorado, and that is on ESPN Plus. So lacrosse, which is certainly playing really well, and we'll see how they do against Colorado. That's a Big 12 matchup. Things you don't say very often in this town. Anyway, that'll do it. That is our another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. We appreciate everybody. Appreciate Urban for coming on. Don't forget Coach Spurrier on Monday. We always appreciate Zach Rothrock for doing an amazing job of putting this together. And we will be back with you Monday in studio. Until then, I am Pat Dooley, and I am deep, I am way back, and I am out of here.